I'm going to start recording. We're going to start lying down. And so, yes, it looks like, I don't know what you want to do, because it looks like maybe Penny isn't coming. So I mean, maybe start lying, maybe start lying down, and then we'll, if she isn't there by the time we come off our back. So Linda, are you okay with that light on there? Okay, great. So let's start lying down. We're going to do a couple of simple familiar movements. And then I've got this little breathing exercise I wanted us to work with a bit today. So we're going to start off and do it a few times on our backs. It's very simple. And we'll see how we get on with that. So the first thing I'd like you to do is just settle your body down onto the ground. And feel the weight of your head resting on the floor. When you're ready, you can start to let your head roll a little bit to the right. Yes, and then use your hands on your forehead. Let the head roll a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left. Yes, and if your neck is feeling tight or your shoulders, you could always bring your hand onto your forehead and use your hand and your arm to roll your head from side to side. So you can either let the head roll itself, or you can use your hand to roll your head. And just do that a few more times. I'm just going to double check whether there's a message from Penny. She's not going to be. We'll move you around in a moment. Okay, so just once, twice more, let your head roll to the right and to the left. And then settle the center of the back of your head on the floor. So just find a comfortable place to settle your head down. And if your legs are long, you're going to bend your knees now and stand your feet on the floor. And take a moment to feel the contact of your footprints on the floor and to feel the back of your pelvis on the ground. And then I'd like you to start to tilt your knees to the right and to the left. That's nice. And just to keep this movement comfortable and easy. So we're thinking about, or maybe perhaps we're thinking about at all points in the class, but particularly as we start off, just what can we do that helps us to settle, helps us just to feel that sense of enjoyment or pleasure. It might not be this movement, but hopefully as we move through some of these little familiar things on our backs, there may be something that suddenly gives you that feeling of, oh, yes, that feels nice. I can relax a little bit. So a couple more times, let your knees tilt to the right and to the left. And then you're going to settle down in the center. You can either keep your knees bent or you can lengthen your legs out. And we're going to come to this little breathing exercise now. So you could bring your hands onto your belly if you like. And maybe just to begin with, just feel a couple of cycles of breath move through you. So this little exercise I've been reading about and practicing over the weekend, and it's something that's supposed to help us when we can't sleep at night, but it's also something that's meant to be good to practice during the day to help us relax a little bit. So what we do is, in a moment, we're going to breathe in for the count of 4. You're going to hold your breath, and in the article I was reading, it says for the count of 7, but I found that a bit much, so I was holding my breath for the count of 5. So that's through your nose you breathe in, and then you breathe out for a count of 8, and you breathe out through your mouth with just a little sort of blowy sound, a little sort of whoosh sound. And we just do that 3 times. So it's quite simple. So let's try it the first time. So you're going to let a breath come in for the count of 4. So breathing in and counting to 4 slowly. And then holding that breath for either the count of 7 or 5, if that's better for you. And then breathing out through your mouth with a little sort of whooshy sound for a count of 8. And then we'll do that twice more. So breathing in for 4, holding that in breath for 5, the count of 5 or 7, and then breathing out through your mouth through that count for that count of 8. So doing that one last time, breathing in for 4, holding for 5 or 7, and then breathing out for 8 through the mouth. Good, and then come back to, if you lengthened your legs out, come back to bending your knees and standing your feet on the floor. But this time, take your legs a little bit wider apart. So your legs are as wide as the narrow edge of your mat. And come now to tilting your knees again, but with your feet in this wider apart distance. So we're going to come back to that breathing exercise sort of 2 or 3 more times in the class and just see whether we can start to build this association with it of it helping us to relax and release tension. But right now we're back to this movement of tilting the knees to the right and to the left with the feet wider apart. And just see how this feels for you around your pelvis, into your hip joints, into the sort of inner thigh as well, particularly the knee that's going out to the side. And so if you like, if it's comfortable, you could let your knees go all the way down on one side and have a couple of breaths there. And if one of your knees needs a cushion under it and you've got a cushion to hand, you can just slide it underneath. And let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then you can move on to the other side. You might come back to tilting your knees a couple of times and then move on to the other side. And have a few breaths with your knees falling down on the other side. And again, if you feel that you want to support one of your knees with a cushion and you have a cushion to hand, you could do. Good. And when you've done that on both sides, you're going to come back to the center and you're going to fold your knees into your chest. And when you fold your knees into your chest, you can hold around the top of your knees. You can have a couple of quiet breaths. You could do a little bit of rocking from side to side, or a little bit of circling around the back of your pelvis. And then just before we come off our backs, you're going to take your arms and legs up to the ceiling and give them a shake out. And as you're doing so, feel the length of your spine. So perhaps there's the length of the spine, perhaps quite a lot of it in contact with the ground. And also just imagining, because in a moment we're going to come over onto hands and knees. So it's almost like you're going to flip yourself around the other way up, not literally. So you maybe from arms and legs to the ceiling, bring your feet back to the floor, roll over onto your side, have a couple of breaths there, and then come onto hands and knees. So Linda, let's if I roll up this mat, then you could turn the other way around and spread out. So we're going to come on to hands and knees. We're going to do some cat movements. We're going to do a little bit of some tail wagging movements as well. So maybe just arriving on hands and knees first of all. So feeling your hands on the floor, hands shoulder width apart. And you can feel your knees on the ground. That's not always so comfortable. And then moving into whichever you'd like to start with. So I'd probably start with a bit of cat, a bit of rounding the back to the ceiling, a bit of dipping the spine down to the floor. That's very nice. And letting your breath flow through you. So you're not necessarily doing anything particularly with your breathing, you're just allowing the breath to move freely. And you might find that as you move, your breathing coordinates with the movement, and that's also fine. You might like to pause in the center and do a bit of tail wagging. So imagining you have a tail, wagging your tail from side to side. And so, yeah, I usually do a bit of cat. I do a little bit of tail wagging and then maybe come back to a little bit of cat. And all the while, just sort of sensing, how does the middle of yourself feel? So if you're rounding your back in cat, let your head hang so the back of the neck releases. When you're dipping your spine in cat, how does that feel? And eventually, when you feel you need to take the weight off your hands and your wrists, from a rounded cat, staying rounded, you're going to rock back into child pose. And just settle in child pose for a few quiet breaths. So usually, yeah, that's it. So let the elbows settle down, let the shoulders soften. So usually I find that I need a little bit of time for my body to adjust to being in a new relationship with the ground. So we were on our back for a while. So now in child pose, we can just sort of become accustomed to the front of our body facing the ground, being in this sort of hands and knees position. And to maybe feel another cycle or two of breath move through you. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave. Yeah, if you look a bit softer across the back of your neck, I think, Linda, just looking at you. And then when you're ready, you're going to be coming back onto hands and knees. We're going to move through dog pose into a forward bend and up into standing. We're just going to do a few simple standing things. So you can come back onto hands and knees. You can plant your hands down, nice big handprints on the floor, tuck your toes under. Exhale, rock your hips back and then up into dog. And just, yeah, see how dog pose feels. It might feel quite creaky. Don't worry, we're going to be coming into standing and doing a few forward bends. So hopefully when we come back to dog, it's going to feel a bit better. But anything you'd like to do in dog to help it feel more comfortable, which usually involves bending one knee, bending both knees. Possibly a bit of breathing, big exhalations. And you can have another breath or two or three in dog. And whenever you're ready, you're going to walk your hands into your feet. We won't stay long in this forward bend because we're going to do some forward bends and standing. So you can sort of move through a forward bend and in your own time, roll up into standing. So how are we temperature-wise? Is it all right? Do you want more air? Or are you... Okay. Right, so in standing, let's start with this loose, easy swinging twist. And I thought today we're not going to do loads of standing because I think we've been doing quite a lot of standing on Mondays and balances. And I thought we're going to do a little bit of standing now, but then we'll do some stuff that's a bit closer to the ground. A bit more sort of arms, things like that. So in this one, let's let the arms be nice and loose and free. We can swing the arms, we can slap them on our body. And yeah, so in standing today, we're just going to focus on doing a few forward bends and then a couple of balances. So once, twice more, swinging from side to side. I think I'm just going to slightly adjust my screen. Okay, so the first forward bend you're going to do, if you settle your feet down a little distance apart, is I'm going to get you to slide your hands down the front of your thighs and pause in this halfway point where you're resting your elbows on your thighs. And just see how that feels. You can look at your feet. You can make sure your toes are long and relaxed. You can let your head hang. And then if your lower back feels completely fine, you can go on all the way into your forward bend. Good. Release your head, release your arms to the ground. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave. Very nice. Feel the weight rooting down through your heels. And then in your own time, on an exhalation, sink down into your heels, roll back up into standing. Just let yourself arrive fully in standing. Maybe once you arrive in standing, just a little bit of swaying from side to side. So we can feel ourselves in standing, we can shake our arms out. And in a moment, we're going to go into another forward bend. This time, you're going to slide your hands down the backs of your legs. And once we're in the forward bend, we're going to slap our legs a bit, particularly in the achy bits. So you can settle down. You can bring your hands towards just sort of at the top of your thighs. And then as you go forward, just sliding your hands down the backs of your legs. And once you end up in your forward bend, then it's quite nice to slap the calves. Usually the backs of backs and fronts of the legs are quite nice to slap. So whatever, yeah, if you don't like slapping your legs, you obviously don't need to do it. And if you want to rest your elbows on your thighs, that's fine as well. And then maybe just end up in a forward bend where it's sort of a bit quieter. Where do your hands go on your legs? Can your hands come maybe to the back of your calves or your ankles or onto your feet? And then we're going to roll back up into standing, sliding the hands back up the backs of our legs. So just bringing ourselves in touch with all that. Those are the muscles that are pulling us back up again. And then again, when you're back up in standing, that's very nice. Just a little bit of swaying from side to side, shaking the arms out. Good. And we're going to do one more forward bend now. This time you're going to bring your hands around the base of your skull, sort of the back of your neck, whatever you prefer. Well, obviously what works with where your hair is as well. So we're going to go forwards into a forward bend like this, and then you're going to release your arms and sweep your arms from side to side in the forward bend. So as you roll forwards, you can use the hands on the back of the neck or the base of the skull to help lengthen the neck out. And then once you're in the forward bend, you can release your arms and then sort of swing your arms, trail your arms from side to side around the fronts of your feet. That's it. Again, these are just suggestions. You don't have to do any of them if you want to be quieter. That looks very nice. So a couple more times if you like, sweeping your arms to the right and to the left. Good. And then pausing in the center, sinking down into your heels, rolling up into standing. Good. And this time when you arrive in standing, maybe give each leg a little shake out. So I said we weren't, I probably said we weren't going to do any balances. We're just going to do very little bit of balancing on 2 feet. So this one where we start to bring our weight forward on the balls of our feet. Do this a few times. I was doing this before earlier this morning, feeling very unsteady and creaky. So let's just do this a few times. So that's it, going up and going down, noticing how it feels. Good. And then if you can feel reasonably steady, you could go up, you could float your arms up, let your shoulders stay down. See if you can have a couple of breaths there. Doesn't matter if you don't, if it's a more wobbly day. Good. Let the shoulders really soften away from the ears. When you come down, when you let your heels come down, sweep your arms down into one more forward bend. Let the head go for a breath or two. That's nice. Very nice. Notice how the backs of the legs feel. Hopefully they're starting to lengthen out a bit now as we go forwards into each forward bend. That's it. And then sink into your heels as you exhale roll up into standing. And again, you could give each leg a little shake out. And then we're just going to do the version of this where we bring our hands when we're balancing. So I think you all know this one, our hands into Hakini Mudra. I'll just show you in Zoom. So we come into the balance and we touch our fingers over our head. And then we bring the hands down in front of our chest. So first things first, settle your feet down. Bring your weight forwards onto the balls of your feet. So find that little balance. And then float the arms up and touch your fingers and thumbs together over your head. Good. And then you might have a breath or two here. But the one I find really helpful is then we might bring the hands down in front of the chest and let the elbows go out to the sides. Good. And so I have my hands a little distance away from my chest. You could have your hands touching your chest. And just see if you can carry on balancing with the fingers and the thumbs touching. Yeah, very nice. Well done. Come down, shake out of arms and legs. So we're going to come to the back of the mat now. We're going to make our way down through a forward bend and dog pose. And in dog pose, we could do the one leg dog poses if we wanted to, and then into child pose. So I thought if we come to the back of the mat and bring your hands into prayer pose, so we could move down through that sort of at the beginning of sun salute type movement. So hands in prayer pose in front of your chest. That's it. Take a moment perhaps to close your eyes, to feel the contact of your hands, to feel your footprints on the floor, to let your shoulders soften. And then letting a breath come in. At this point, you might want to open your eyes, take your arms down and then up. Drop your shoulders away from your ears, feel long and tall, and then gathering your elbows in, rolling down into a forward bend. And then it's really up to you. You could have a couple of breaths, 2 or 3 breaths in your forward bend, and then walking your hands on into dog pose. And it really depends. I've just suggested the one leg dog poses. You might just want to do a normal dog pose and perhaps give yourself a few breaths in a normal dog pose and see how it feels. And then if you do feel that you'd like to explore taking one leg up, and I tend to like to do the one when I'm rolling my pelvis and stretching into my heels. If the mood takes you and you fancy doing that, if you think, oh no, I'm really not ready for that, you don't need to do that. And if you do, just feel that you can really stretch back into the raised heel. That's it, Linda. And for you, just make sure you keep letting your head really hang. Ah, that's it. Good. And I think for anyone, if you do raise your leg, make sure you're letting your head still hang. And if you do raise your leg, you don't need to stay with that same leg raised. You can just do a little bit on each side. And you can raise your leg and you can keep the back of your pelvis level, or you can roll your pelvis. So that's it. So sort of it turns to the side. You turn your pelvis towards the raised leg side. And whenever you've had enough, you're going to fold down into child pose. Yes, that's a nice version, Sally, where you bend that top leg, absolutely. So settle down into child pose when you're ready. Let the weight of your body settle on the ground. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave. So we're going to work now. I've got a little sequence that we're going to work with, which is from hands and knees, which is going to be a little bit of we'll find out, I think. So from child pose, you're going to come onto hands and knees. We're going to do this sequence twice, and you're going to lengthen each leg out behind you in turn. So coming onto hands and knees, and then lengthening each leg out behind you. So it's this sort of half plank pose. So stretching into your heel, resting down through the arms. And this one is such a good one to open through the back of the legs to really stretch out the back of the calf. Good. And then from here, from doing this half plank pose, we're going to come on into a full plank pose. So you should have, if you've stretched one leg out behind you, you'll know that you've got enough room on the mat. So you're going to keep your shoulders over your wrists, and you're going to lengthen one leg back, and then keeping your pelvis where it is, take the other leg back as well. So we're in our lovely plank pose. We're going to have a few breaths. I'm just going to have a little look at you. Sarah, let your head come up a bit more. So look sort of towards the fingertips. Yes. So you don't want to let your head hang in plank pose. Good. And do come out of plank pose whenever you've had enough. Come down. Yeah, you come down. You could for a moment. Yeah, I think we're going to come on into lunge. So you might for a moment want to sit back over your heels or come to here and just shake your hands out or bring the backs of your hands together. Really depending how plank pose feels, because then we're going to go on to stepping one foot forwards in lunge. Tucking the back toes under, so we're coming into lunge on one side. Doesn't matter which side, we're going to do both. So we've got the front knee over the front heel. We're having a few breaths here. Your back toes could be tucked under or flat. Now, you could, depending how your lunge feels, you might want to do a bit of, sort of easing in and out of lunge. So you could untuck your back toe. And if you like, you could do the one where you rock back and you look back towards your back foot. You keep your chest, your front leg stays bent, you keep your chest close to your thigh. And then you can ease back into lunge. So it's up to you. The thing I'd say is, obviously we'll try to find a bit of this stretch through the front of the back leg side. So if we always find we're completely running away from that and rocking back, so make sure if you're rocking back that's just what I'm saying, is that means you can then come into lunge and have a few breaths in lunge. We obviously don't want to sort of make it really unpleasant either. So, and you can use your hands as much as you like to support yourself in lunge. Okay, and whenever you're ready, you can swap sides and lunge. So if you fancy going through dog pose to do that, you could do, or you could just swap sides on hands and knees and bring the other foot forward. Good. So bring the other foot forwards, and I think again, just perhaps arriving in lunge, making sure you can feel that front knee over the front heel. We've got the stretch through the front of the back leg thigh. So Nigel, you might just want to do both sides a little bit more quickly so you feel balanced. And then yes, if you feel that the easing forwards and back is helpful, untucking your back toe. Well, I say untuck the back toe, my back knee. Again. Good. So you could rock, ease back and then come back into lunge, see how that feels. Having a few breaths. So yes, everyone, Nigel, make sure you've done both sides if you haven't, because this is side 2 for most people. So from lunge, we've lengthened out a little bit through the front of the body. So what we're going to do now is come on to hands and knees and make it a long hands and knees so that you can start to just do a little bit of this. What's it like to rock the pelvis forward? You're not necessarily going all the way to your face up dog, but just how does this feel? So again, we're coming back to being supported through our arms. And one of the really important things to our face up dog is when we rock forwards, we want to try and avoid our elbows then shooting up around our ears. So if we're leaning into the arms, can we keep this lovely feeling of distance between the shoulders and the ears? And just, yeah, see how it feels. If the lower back's feeling a little bit vulnerable today, then you don't need to go all the way. And whenever your arms need a break, because we'll come back to this in a moment when we do this little sequence the second time, Whenever your arms need a break, just fold all the way back into child's pose. And give yourself a couple of quiet breaths. That's nice. Yeah, very nice. Good. A couple of quiet breaths in child. Or equally, if you prefer, you could come into kneeling, either up or down kneeling, and give your arms a little shake out. Little swing from side to side. And maybe we'll do that just before we come back onto the other side. So perhaps from this child pose, walk your hands into kneeling. You can be sitting down in kneeling or coming up in kneeling if this is better. And wherever you are, up kneeling, down kneeling, whichever you prefer, a bit of swinging the arms. And also, if your wrists would appreciate it, a bit of this one, bringing the backs of the hands together. Yeah, bit of cow arms is nice. Some Sheila. Good. So we're going to do that whole little sequence again. So if we remember, the first thing we did was coming onto hands and knees and stretching each leg in turn out behind us, resting down through the arms. So do that on both sides. And then we'll come on into plank pose. So again, just try and have your shoulders Sarah, your shoulders look a little bit far back from your wrists. So try and organize yourself in plank so that your shoulders are over your wrists. Taking one leg back, adding the other leg in, your pelvis stays put. It's not going up, it's not going down. And you're looking down at the floor, perhaps slightly ahead of your fingers. You don't have to stay there too long. It's not the easiest place to speak or breathe. You can come down. If you want to give your hands a little shake out, you can. And when you're ready, then it's coming on into your lunge again. So it's quite interesting to come back into a second lunge. Again, you can ease back in and out of lunge if you like. You could, if you wanted to try a slightly different lunge, do the variation where you walk your front foot a bit out to the side and both hands come into the center. And if you were feeling terribly enthusiastic, you could then take your back knee off the ground and stretch into your back heel. This is just if you're bored in a normal lunge. The normal lunge is plenty. Good. And then let's move on to the second side of lunge. So other foot coming forward, so settling down in your lunge, your knee over your heel. So again, you've got those easing forward and back options of lunge. And you've also got that option where you walk your front foot out to the side. So both hands come inside that leg. And then again, if you're feeling very enthusiastic, you tuck your back toe under and let your back knee come off the ground. So this sort of extra stretchy lunge, if you like. Good. Okay, yes, you can come down. You ease out of the lunge. And yeah, if you want to sit back and for a moment, shake your hands out. What we're going to do this time is come into face up dog again, but this time we'll do it through using our cat movements. So you might like to come back onto hands and knees and just do a few cat movements to remind you of that. It's really the rounding cat that we use for face up dog. And then obviously to move into face up dog, and once we end up in face up dog, it's a bit more like the dipping down cat. So what you're going to do is round your back to the ceiling and tuck your toes under and stay rounded and rock your hips back over your heels. And then you can just slide your hands forwards a little bit on your mat. So yeah, that's it. Take the hands further away from your knees. Let a breath come in, and as you exhale, start to travel forwards into face up dog with your back rounded. So watching your pelvis. And then when your shoulders end up over your wrists, then you can look forward. Very, very nice. And untuck your toes. Good. And then you can reverse that movement to start to go back, tuck your toes under, round your back, look back behind you. You probably don't need to move your hands forwards now if you kept them where they are. Let the breath come in. And again, move forwards on your out breath, rounding your back to the ceiling, traveling forwards, good. Untucking your toes, very nice. Shoulders down away from the ears. So one more time, all the way back, rounding your back, looking back, tucking the toes under, letting a breath come in. So you travel forwards on your out breath. All the way into face up dog. When you think about the shoulders down away from your ears, so that's it. Very, very nice. Hang on. Right. And then folding back into child. No, on your bed. Because we mentioned dogs. Get on your bed. Otto, on your bed. Like that. Also, sense of timing seems to have gone completely off. On your bed. Good. So just a few quiet breaths in child pose. Bed. Bed. And then, Sheila, you will have done this on Friday. We're going to come to do something that doesn't involve bearing weight through our arms. And it's everyone's favorite abdominal exercises, which we often leave to the end of class and then don't do at all. So I thought we would do these now. So you could just perhaps come and sit on your bottom and lengthen your legs out. You need to be towards the front of your mat. So we start with these ones where you're sliding your hands from your feet to your knees. And we're just trying to round our back. And so, yeah, Sheila, you had the pleasure of doing these on, on Friday as well. So just start this movement where you're sliding your hands from your feet to your knees and down, and letting your back bend. And then we start from this one to let our feet come up. So we roll onto our back, and I'm keeping my fingertips around the back of my thighs. So you roll back looking down, and then look forwards to come back up. And actually what we're trying to do with this one is to roll back so we can balance on the back of our pelvis. And I'm actually thinking, I was experimenting with this earlier, you might need to look forward to stop yourself rolling too far back. Okay, so that's sort of stage 2. Rolling down, coming back up. Now stage 3, as we all know, is the delightful one where we try and lengthen our legs out. And my latest tip with this is to not leave it too long to straighten the legs. So don't go too low down. That's it. So almost the sooner you start lengthening your legs out, perhaps the easier. Oh. Delightful. So we're going to do that 3 times if you can bear it. If you can't, you can lie down. Nigel, if it starts to re-aggravate you here, just lie down. So again, you're leaning back, you're looking down, you're trying to keep your shoulders and heels at the same height. So you're trying not to go really, really low with your back. So it's sort of the back of the pelvis on the ground. You can feel all those delightful abdominal muscles kicking in. Yeah, so last time, and from this time, you will lie down on your back. So you can roll back, let the legs come up, try to find this balance on the back of your pelvis. You're trying to be this sort of canoe kayak shape, and then let yourself collapse down. It isn't actually quite time to go to sleep just yet. You're going to have a little mini breather, and we're going to come back to, well, just first of all, quiet breathing. First, perhaps if you feel that it's helpful to let your head roll a little bit to the right and to the left, because in this one, the muscles in the front of the neck can get a bit held. How's your neck with that one, Linda? Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I was just thinking, because in that one, the muscles in the front of the neck are working, which means it's not the back. So in some ways, it's maybe actually quite a good one for you. Okay, so yes, if you want to roll your head a little bit from side to side, you can do. And then just settle the center of the back of your head on the floor. And then I'd like us to come to the breathing we did at the beginning of the class and just see how this is now. So perhaps first of all, again, just have a couple of normal cycles of breath where your hands could be resting, if you like, on your belly or on the floor beside you. And you feel the breath come in and you feel the breath leave. And then 3 times we'll do the little breathing exercise where we breathe in for the count of 4. We hold that breath either for the count of 5 or the count of 7. And then we exhale through the mouth with that little whooshy sound for a count of 8. So just try that 3 times on your own. And when you're breathing out for 8 through your mouth, just really see if at that point you can release tension and soften. So breathing in for 4, holding for 5 or 7, and then breathing out with that real whooshy sound that's softening for 8. And when you've done that 3 times, just come back to your normal breathing and let a cycle or 2 of breath move through you. You're going to come to bending your knees, standing your feet on the floor. And letting your knees tilt to the right and to the left. Good, that's nice. So when you're ready, knees tilting to the right and to the left. And then you're going to pause in the center and settle down and stop tilting your knees and settle your feet on the floor. And then I'd like you to come to bridge pose. So perhaps 2 or 3 times, rolling up and down into bridge pose by sinking down into your feet, letting your pelvis and some of your spine come away from the floor. So really using your feet here. Just, yeah, and think about it as being a movement. So you're rolling up, peeling your spine off the floor, and then you're placing your vertebrae back down again. So rather than necessarily staying in bridge. And if you feel that perhaps the first bridge you did, your feet weren't that planted, when you come back down and you're about to do a second bridge, perhaps adjust your feet a little bit. Perhaps they need to move closer to your bottom. Perhaps you need to be a bit wider apart. Yeah, Sheila, those feet look very planted. That second one, good. So another bridge or 2. And feel as you move into bridge, how the front of your body opens. So Sarah, you could try with your knees a bit closer, no, sorry, your heels a bit closer into you, into your bottom. As long as, does your pelvis still stay on the floor if you do that? Yeah. Okay, then really try and send your knees forwards over your feet as you go up. That's good. Good. Okay. So make this your last bridge pose. And so that feeling of being open through the front of the body. In bridge pose, what's really working is that the muscles in the backs of the legs and the belly can be quite relaxed. Because then we're going to contrast this with another movement where we're using the abdominals. When you come down from that bridge, just settle your pelvis on the floor. And what you're going to do, and Linda, just obviously be careful with your neck with this, what you're going to do now is interlink your fingers around the back of your head. And we're going to do these little mini sit-ups. So as you exhale, we're going to do this 6 times. As you exhale, you're going to lift your head and gather your elbows in and look between your legs, and then come back down again as your breath comes in. So do this on an out breath. As you exhale, you're going to lift your head, gather your elbows in. You can also tilt your pelvis towards your face so that the middle of your back presses down onto the floor. So I think that's twice. And so just do this 6 times. And Linda, I think just make sure you're just supporting your head rather than any feeling of pulling there. Good. And feeling how the muscles in the front of your body are gathering up. So it's very much the opposite of the bridge pose. So I think it's perhaps a couple more times will take you to 6. Sorry, 6 is probably a lot to count to. 3 is usually my limit. And when you've done this 6 times, this little mini sit up, you're then going to release your arms and come back to another couple of bridge poses and just see how they feel. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, so from doing your little mini sit-ups, how does it then feel to come into bridge pose once more and let the front of the body open? Very nice. And when you've done a couple more bridge poses, I don't mean a couple more on top of the ones you've already done. I mean, when you've done a couple of bridge poses, you can fold your knees into your chest. So when you folded your knees into your chest, just do whatever's comfortable, a little bit of rocking from side to side. You can take your arms and legs up to the ceiling if you like, give them a bit of a shake out. And then in case you think it's time to go to sleep now, we're going to be rolling onto our side and coming back onto hands and knees. So we're going to do a few more hands and knees things and then come back onto our back. So after those things we've been doing on our backs, I thought it'd be interesting to come to your cat movements again, some cat movements and some tail wagging, and just see how your spine feels. So our boat pose and our little sit-ups and bridge pose are all the same movement as cat, but just done lying on our backs, or very similar movements. So seeing how it feels to come into cat. How does it feel? Very nice to round your back to the ceiling, to sit your spine down to the floor. Good. And you can also add in some little tail wagging movements if you like, see how those feel now. And in your own time, you're going to come do a bit more cat, you can do a bit more tail wagging, but in your own time, you're going to come into dog pose. And just have a bit of a lengthen out in dog, see how it feels. If you fancy doing any of your one-leg dogs, you could do. You don't have to. So yeah, so whenever you're ready from cat, from tail wagging, you can then tuck your toes under and rock your hips up and back into dog. And just when you arrive in dog, see what presents itself to you in your body. How does your body feel in dog? And it might be that we're feeling, obviously it's quite nice to do a dog pose quite late on in class, and it might just feel a bit more easy, a bit easier, a bit more comfortable. Very nice, you might be to just sort of stay there and breathe. If you feel you want the sort of big expansive movement of taking one leg up, of course you can do that. That's just an option. It might just be that you want to be quiet in your dog. And obviously when you have had enough in dog, great, you're going to fold down into child pose and take the weight off your arms and your hands and your wrists. Good. very nice dog there, Nigel. Yes, lovely, lovely dog poses, everyone. So when you come into child pose, give your arms and your wrists a little moment of softening and releasing, because we're going to have one last little visit to face up dog in a moment. So we're going to be taking the weight back into our arms, asking the wrists to bend. So from child pose, what you can do is reach your arms forwards on the floor in front of you. So slide your hands forwards. So your elbows come off the ground. So you're really sort of long in your child pose, and then come up onto hands and knees. So you're in this long hands and knees. That's it. So when you arrive in your hands and knees, just have a look and check that your hands are further forward, that's it, than your shoulders. And what I thought you could do is your tail wagging movement. So you can wag your tail back into child pose, and you can do the side to side tail wagging movement forwards into face up dog, which is this feeling of the pelvis moving from side to side. So this perhaps sort of snake-like feeling that can take us forwards into face up dog and can take us back into child pose. We can do that a few times, as long as the shoulders and arms feel okay. And off there's often this is a nice way to sneak ourselves into face up dog. Good, very nice. Whenever you've had enough, you can fold back into child, or you can sit in down or up kneeling. Yeah, that's nice, nice face up dog. Good, lovely. Yes. Child pose or kneeling, shaking the hands out, or up kneeling, swinging the arms a little bit. Good. And you're going to be all thrilled to hear that we're going to have one more little go at our boat poses to make our way back down into lying down. So just in case you felt you didn't have quite enough these lovely these lovely abdominal balancy ones. So yeah, you could, it's really up to you. You could just do a bit of, if you like the rocking, you could just do a little bit of rocking. You could be rolling into a hole in the floor, which is not particularly helpful. That's it. So remember, if you're rolling back, perhaps you need to lift your legs and lengthen them sooner than you think. Try and find this point of balance. The back of the pelvis. Good. Again, we'll do them 3 times and then we'll lie down again from here. So if you think, why on earth we're doing these so much, I think they're quite just a good contrast to when we're using our arms and plank pose and face up dog. And also, yeah, it's just interesting to come back, and maybe the second time we find them easier or harder. Okay, so if you've done them 3 times, then you can definitely lie down and let yourself settle down. And then just have a few quiet breaths doing, well, I say do nothing if there's something you particularly, yes, so Aditi, that was one of the things I was going to suggest. So you could just do nothing for a moment. You could do a little bit of rolling your head. And you could also, if you like, bend your knees, stand your feet on the floor, do a bit of tilting the knees. Yeah, Sheila, I always want to do bridge pose after this. The bridge pose is another thing you could do. So yeah, in my book, I've got rolling the head, tilting the knees. But if there's something else you feel like doing, or if you feel like doing nothing, that's fine too. Good. So I'm just going to give you another moment, another minute or so to do whatever it is you feel like doing. And if what you feel like doing is nothing, then that's very, very valid. And we're going to finish with a floor twist. And you don't need, I'll talk you into it, but there's basically, you've got two options. And so Nigel, I was thinking particularly for you, the floor twist from your side. So one option is the floor twist from your side. The other option is the floor twist where you fold your knees into your chest from your back. So yeah, if you want to go on your side, that's a really good option. If you want to do it on your back, that's also a good option. So yeah, so if you're going to do the floor twist from your side, roll onto one side, and you might want a cushion under the side of your head. So do you want a cushion on the side of your head? Are you okay? So if you're on your side, have your knees at a right angle to your body. That's it. And then you're going to experiment with it, sliding that sort of top arm up the bottom arm across the front of your chest. Yes, it's probably, that's good. And then back again. If you're doing the floor twist from your back, what I would suggest is folding your knees into your chest. And then I have this thing where I have to lengthen my legs up to the ceiling and then wrap one arm around the back of them. And then you're going to lengthen the other arm out at shoulder height. And the other arm out at shoulder height. And then take your knees down in the opposite direction to your outstretched arm. Good. So if you started off on your side, you're rolling the top, sliding the top hand up your bottom arm across your chest towards the floor behind you, and you let your top knee slide or even lift so that you can bring the arm all the way onto the floor. That's it, and let it rest down. Or you could have a cushion between those knees there. Or are you happy as you are? Good. Okay, so whether you started on your back or on your side, you arrive in your floor twist, and you can have a few breaths there. If you're on your side, you could move in and out of it. Just let your jaw, let the jaw soften and relax as much as possible. And yes, if you're working on your side, you then have to roll. Well, all of you have to roll onto your back, so you can do the other side. So if your starting point was on your side, roll onto your back, and then make your way onto your other side. If your starting point was on your back, roll onto your back, fold your knees into your chest, take your legs up to the ceiling if you like. Sheila, you look like you benefit from that cushion between your knees if it's not too much of a pain to get it, to see that nice big cushion. That's it. Yeah. Good, that's it, Nigel. So Nigel and Sarah, if you're on your side, that top arm can slide, or it can just, yeah, like you're doing, Nigel, just rest the arm on the floor behind you. The top knee can lift and slide on that top thigh. If you're inside two of your floor twist, it's just nice to see if you can be settled there, to feel the movement of your breath in your body. So feeling the breath coming in, feeling the breath leaving. And in your own time, you can come back to the center. And we're just going to finish with a little bit of quiet breathing lying down. We're going to come back to that breathing exercise in lying. And then I think once we'll come back to it in sitting as well. So we're going to just start with some lying down. So settle yourself down. I might turn that light out. have something. It seems very gloomy. Thankfully brightened up. So settle down onto your back. So you can have your legs long or your knees bent. Is any blankets all right? Very okay. Got the sun on you, which is rather nice. Yeah, so settle down onto your back, and you can either have your arms by your sides or your hands resting on the front of your body. And starting by gathering your attention into your breathing, and just to start with, you're just going to see if you can feel the movement of the breath in the body. And one of the reasons we have breathing exercises such as the one we've been doing today is it can sometimes make it easier to keep our attention with our breath if we're doing something specifically with the breathing. So we'll come back to this little exercise 3 times as we're lying down. So remember, it's breathing in for 4, holding that breath for 5 or 7, and then breathing out to the count of 8, and you're blowing out through your mouth, that sort of whooshy sound. So I'll let you just try that on your own time. So breathing in for 4, holding the breath for 5 or 7, breathing out through the mouth for 8. And then returning to your natural breathing for a few more cycles of breath. And in a moment, I'm going to ring the singing bowl. And what I'd like you to do is just, when we get to the end of the 3 sounds, you're going to just very sort of quietly make your way over into a comfortable sitting position. And we're going to do that little breathing exercise in sitting 3 times, just because our breathing feels quite different when we're upright. So you could be sitting with your back against the wall or however's comfortable. So you're not going to be sitting long, so it doesn't have to be your most amazing sitting position ever, but you want to be comfortable. So it could be cross-legged. Kneeling is really good, Nigel. You've got a little meditation stool or something. Legs long, like Sheila's doing, is really nice if your back is against a wall. And just give your body a moment to settle upright. You could close your eyes, feel your head sitting on the top of your spine. And then whenever you're ready, you can try the little breathing exercise 3 times. So breathing in for 4, holding the breath for 5 or 7, and then breathing out through the mouth with that little sort of whooshy sound for 8. When you've done that 3 times, you might like to fold forwards a little bit, or lengthen your legs out if they're bent, or bend your knees if they're straight. That's it. And then thank you very much, everyone. And people on Zoom, it would be thank you, people here in the room. People on Zoom, it would be helpful to know what the sound was like. So that's to unmute yourself.
Yeah, mostly for me it was okay. The singing bowl doesn't come across well at the end.
Interesting. Yeah.
Quite faint. It's quite, you really have to listen for it.
So the singing bowl's usually much louder, is it? So
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But generally, is the sound better with the AirPods or the same? Or Nigel, you think it's better? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was better, apart from the singing bowl.
Apart from the singing bowl, okay, so that's really interesting. So it might be at that point when I use the singing bowl, I need to take the AirPod out.
It didn't really matter,
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. It almost feels more direct. Almost, it's I can't describe it really, but your talking feels almost much more, has a bit more impact, I think, with the thing.
Okay,
that's what I found anyway. It's much more present.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to hear, because I mean, I think it was Wednesday morning. A couple of people were really complaining about the sound. So I was like, oh my goodness, I need to sort it out. And then and I was doing quite a lot of research. My friend said AirPods, and okay, so it seems to be a good move. As long as I can keep it in my ear. I now I'm thinking I should have spent the extra money and got the AirPod Pro, which probably stay in better. But AirPods.
You're expensive.
yeah. But I was hoping, because we had these fake AirPods, I was hoping they'd work, but obviously the microphone's no good. And I think the thing about real AirPods is when they've got one of the best microphones around. So that was well for money anyway. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye everyone.
Bye everyone. Yes.
Bye.